There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim.
The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm L.A. Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of the Nephilim.
Folks, if you're here for the first time, please hit the little subscribe button down below. We're trying to get over 200,000 this year. I don't know whether we'll make it or not, but by golly, we're going to give it a shot. Hey, today it's back to the basics, Nephilim 101. And I'll get into that and so much more. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Hey folks, how about this? Noble Gold, one of the sponsors of our show, has just been picked by Consumer Affairs, the rating agency, as the overall #1 gold IRA company in the United States. How about them apples? Talk to the team today if you're thinking about precious metals. And if you're quick, they're giving away an incredible 1/10 of an ounce American Eagle gold-proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover. Folks, you can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now, 877-646-5347. That's 876-646-5347. Or to find out more, please visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com. I was on the internet over the weekend. By the way, I've got a little bit of a cold that I picked up, who knows where. But little house cleaning thing. We did 3 days of shooting. We had a whole bunch of people there all over the mounds in Ohio. It was incredible. The Bigfoot conference was great too. Thank you all. Some of you traveled from as far away as New York City, so I was just blown away by that. I spoke for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour 20 minutes. The room was pretty filled. Thank you for those of you who checked us out. I want to thank one of our sponsors, Dave Crawford, and his lovely wife, Barbara, who allowed us to stay in this cabin that they have, log cabin, and just at the end of this field, just beautiful. Very quiet, very bucolic, just incredible. Hats off to them. Also, Matt Heiness, who really got me into that Bigfoot conference, that Sasquatch conference. And of course, thank you, B, for also inviting me. It was a hoot, and it was great to be there. Met a lot of folks. I got to tell you this before I get into what I was saying today. And Peggy and I, we're just watching the crowd. We are looking at the emergence of Babylon, in my opinion. That's what we're looking at. I'll leave it at that. But we are looking at the emergence of Babylon right here in America. So let's go back to basis. So our first slide, Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. That's the NIV. Here's the King James. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, thou shalt bruise his heel. The Message. I'm declaring war between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He'll wound your head, you'll wound his heel. New Revised Standard. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will strike your head, you will strike his heel. This is the essence of the biblical prophetic narrative. If we don't understand Genesis 3:15, in my opinion, when we get to other passages, we don't have a clue as to what is going on. And that's why I'm going back to the basics here. Can't remember the last time I did this on a YouTube, but I need to do it because it's that important. And I understand there's three views of what is Genesis 6. Is it the godly line of Seth and the hoochie mamas of Cain? But nowhere in the text is to talk about that. I'm getting ahead of myself, I get it. The other interpretation was it would be fallen angels that manifested and came down or had sex with the woman to create offspring. Wonder whose wheelhouse that's in, right? The third is, of course, these were men of renown. These were, the powerful men, gods and just whatever. And I'm not buying that for a second. So it really comes down to two views. The Sethite view, which, by the way, is taught in most seminaries, and, of course, the view that I hold, which my mentor, the late Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, wrote in his now classic book, The Omega Conspiracy. Let's walk through it. Genesis 3:15. And I'm going to go down to the message. They're in the garden. Adam and Eve are over here. The dragon is over here. And the pre-incarnate Christ, a Christophany, a theophany, Jesus is in the garden. And the Lord says something which sets up the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative, in my opinion. And this is from the message. I'm declaring war between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He'll wound your head, you'll wound his heel. So if it's not the Nephilim, then where are the offspring? Let's just stop there. If you can't find the offspring, then what is this about? But you can find the offspring. And 3 chapters later in Genesis 6, it's right there. And then we'll get into the book of Enoch. And what amazes me about some people is they just cherry pick. Well, we're going to dismiss the book of Jude. You can't talk about the book of Enoch. It's not part of the canon. So they dismiss Jude because, well, Jude's quoting from Enoch. If Jude is quoting from Enoch, for crying out loud, he must know it. But once again, I'm getting way ahead of myself. This scripture in Genesis 3:15, unless we come to the correct interpretation of it, we have no idea what's going on in the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. Zippo. And this is why the church is so anemic and it doesn't understand what's going on, and yet it's all throughout the biblical prophetic narrative. It's there. It's there. It's right there. And I will put enmity, war between the woman, between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. What are we talking about? Seed. The dragon has seed. Angels do procreate. Meniscus monoci from Rustizdar. They have the ability to transmogrify, move into different, they can appear as an angel of light. They can appear as whatever they want to. And it happened. And it happened. And if we dismiss this, then how do we reconcile Genesis 3:15? What does it mean? Where is this seed of the dragon? We know that the seed of the woman, the proto-evangelium, becomes the Lord, becomes Jesus. But that's thousands of years later. Thousands of years later. Abraham is tapped out. 400 years go by. They move into the promised land. It's genocide. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, unless something else is going on. This is why the importance of the correct interpretation of Genesis 3:15. It's right there. I'm declaring war. Who's declaring war? Jesus is declaring war because he's the pre-incarnate Christ. He's there in the garden. Jesus is declaring war between the dragon and the woman, between the dragon's offspring and the woman's offspring. Coming from the woman thousands of years later is the Messiah. But who is the offspring from the dragon? And unless it's not there, LA. The dragon can't possibly do that. Well, then you need to go back and correct the Lord, because the Lord is telling us that it'll be the dragon's offspring and the woman's offspring. They're fighting each other. It is a seed war. Moving right along, Nephilim 101. When we finally get to Genesis 6, when men began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God. Now, I'm not seeing any the godly line of Seth. It's not there, is it? The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of men and had children by them. If you've not read this book, Countermove, it tells us exactly how the Nephilim returned after the flood. You can go to my website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and procure that. You can also go to onthetrailwithla.com, onthetrailwithla.com. 2 ways to purchase. Countermove, very important book. So what is this? They as my late mentor, Dr. I.D.E. Thomas used to say, may torture the text. Who were the sons of God? Next slide. Well, actually, the book of Enoch. And it came to pass when the children of men multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye, will not I indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. Stop right there. That verse would lay hidden for basically thousands of years. That verse became the nexus for this book, Countermove. And my Lord gave it to me. And I mean, I could go down a rabbit trail, but that verse is so pregnant with meaning, it's a suicide mission. It's basically what he's talking about. He knows that they're gonna pay the penalty of a great sin. They know, but they do it anyway. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. And they all answered and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations, and they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. By the way, our 2023 Israel tour, which happens in the fall next year, we will be going to Mount Hermon. Why? That's where all the mischief started, as Chuck Missler used to say. So, Jude, and the angels who did not keep their position of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling. Wait a second. So what is Jude talking about here? You see, we can torture the text. Well, he's really not talking about the incursions. The angels, Genesis 6, no, that never really happened. Oh, we can't trust the book of Enoch, even though Jude quotes from it, right? Even though Jude quotes from it. Somehow we can't trust that? Of course we can. But see, if you have an agenda and you don't want to get to the truth, then you'll never get to the truth because it's the unthinkable. Well, I wasn't taught that in seminary. It's got to be the godly line of Seth and the hoochie mamas of Cain. But nowhere in the text is to say that. It tells us the sons of God came down. And the sons of God, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, and I'll get to that in just a second, always refers to the angelic host. That's who it is. So what does he say this? Why is this so important in Jude? And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling. Whoa, these he is kept in darkness. Once again, I talk about this, and I quote from Bullinger. When Jesus dies on the cross and he descends to the lower parts of the earth, it's a proclamation. It's a proclamation against those angels who have done the unthinkable, mingle their seed. He goes down there and says, no jailbreak, you're not getting out. That is absolutely incredible. Let's continue. In a similar way, so now he links the two passages together. Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding towns gave themselves up to sexual immorality and perversion. They serve as an example of those who suffered the punishment of eternal fire. It also says, gave themselves up and going after strange flesh. I wonder what that was. The only time in the biblical prophetic narrative where we see the judgment of Father God which is completely conclusive. There is not a scintilla of grace and mercy is when the Nephilim are involved. When he wipes them out in the flood, when he confuses the language in Babel, why? Because only Nimrod has become Gibborim. So he doesn't have to wipe out the planet. But the seed war, this is why Genesis 3:15. You say, why is this going on? Move, counter-move, move, counter-move. It is, in fact, a cosmic chess match, which is the prelude to this book. That was written first, and then, of course, this book came later on. The two together are, in my opinion, a must-read, because it sets up what's going on. Move, counter-move, all throughout the biblical prophetic narrative, finally leading up to the days that we find ourselves now. They will mingle their seed with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. I wonder what that means. Maybe we'll get into that on the next on the trail of the Nephilim. The B'nai Ha-Elohim, the exact term, sons of God, used in Genesis 6:1-4, is used always also in Job. It always refers to angels. Job 1, verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God, B'nai Ha-Elohim, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan was also among them. Job 2:1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself. And it goes on. The bottom line is, folks, nowhere in that text does it ever say the sons of Seth. It's not there. The godly line of Seth and the hoochie mamas of Cain. It's not there. And we've got extra biblical text, but Jude references the book of Enoch. Why? Because obviously he read it. It wasn't taboo. Don't read the book of Enoch. Is it part of our canon? Let me just say this. If I were the enemy, you say, well, you know, LA, the word is kept. God has kept the word. I get that. But why is it that we've got the Russian Orthodox Bible, the King James Bible, the NIV Bible, the Greek Orthodox Bible? I mean, I could go on. The Ethiopian Bible, which, by the way, last time I checked, the book of Enoch, okay, and the Genesis account in Enoch precludes Genesis. How does that work? So which one is right? Oh, and I'm sure all the King James only people will be jumping up and down. The point I'm trying to make is there are so many different translations. If you were going to keep one book out to keep people ignorant, you'd keep the book of Enoch out. Why? I'll tell you why. Let's go back to the book of Enoch. And it came to pass when the children of men multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful daughters, and the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them. There it is. And they descended. So let's move on. Finally, we get to this. When the 10 spies go in there into the promised land, and we saw the giants there, the descendants of Enoch. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Something is going on. There is another incursion. How the Nephilim returned after the flood. Why? Because they do this until the cross, and then it all goes away. And then finally, when we get to the book of Daniel, and it says, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Who are they? It can't be men, so whose seed are we talking about? Genesis 3:15 is crucial. And with all due respect to that gentleman who gave a wonderful presentation, in my humble opinion, the only interpretation is that of fallen angels having sex with the women. Otherwise, we've got genocide. When Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, it's genocide. Right? We've got this wrathful, vengeful, maniacal, capricious God of the Old Testament, but that's not who he is. It's the same God that we see in the New Testament, loving, holy God. But because of the protocols of this heavenly war, which continues right up until modernity, their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Welcome to the UFO abduction phenomena. And I'll be talking more about that perhaps even tomorrow when we do UFO update. So there you go, folks. Something is going on. This, of course, is the Chongo Skull, which I believe is a Nephilim. Basically, we did the DNA testing. The morphological differences are completely wrong. Look at the eye sockets. They are 25 to 30% larger. You cannot create this type of a head by cranial deformation where you bind the head. This, of course, was in Peru. The haplogroups, and this is number 6, the DNA of our On the Trail of a Nephilim series. I would encourage you to go there and download and rent the series. You can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net. Watch the DNA. It's mind-boggling. And I want to thank our sponsors who sponsored us. They gave us a ton of money. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It cost us thousands of dollars to go down there, procure the DNA, to go to different labs and have it tested. And the DNA results showed that the mitochondrial DNA, which comes from the female side of the equation, originated in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. That rewrites history. It was not contaminated. You need to watch that film. You really do. You can also go to onthetrailwithla.com, onthetrailwithla.com, and download or buy the hard copies. Folks, it's happening right before us. As far as I know, we were the first people ever to get that skull and turn it upside down and show you where the foramen magnum is. And all that is in number 6 of On the Trail of a Nephilim. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching On the Trail of a Nephilim. We'll be back a little later in the week with more about Genesis 6, the incursion, the first incursion, the second incursion. Thanks so much for watching. Tell a friend. We are on the trail. We are working on number 8, and that will be probably in the next month or two. The rough cut is there, but it's just Gil and myself. So thanks so much for watching On the Trail of a Nephilim. Remember, there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim.